How is everybody doing? How is everybody doing? Hello, 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 hello. We have news coming out of the mining sector in South Africa, which has been ongoing in the past 2 weeks. And I don't know how I missed this, but it's been going on. Anglo American, the multinational mining giant with its roots in colonial South Africa, has successfully demergered or divested its interest from Anglo American Platinum, which is the largest platinum producer in the world, accounting for up to 38% of all the platinum that is being mined and processed in the world. And those are big news. I wanted to discuss that with you, what that means for South Africa. Because I don't really think it means a lot about the platinum, the PGM space. Nothing has changed there. It's more likely speaking about what it means for South Africa. But stay with me. Yeah, folks, this has happened. This big news has happened. Anglo American, the giant multinational diversified mining company of Anglo American, has sold almost all of its platinum interest. Shocking, right? Shocking only if you are not aware that their platinum interests are primarily located in South Africa, which is a location that has been, or a market that a lot of global investors have been very bearish with regards, which they have not been happy with regards. Remember last year around, if you follow like this sort of major business news, one of these largest mining companies in the world, BHP Billiton, had a proposal to buy Anglo American. This is around April last year. And this deal actually fell through because part of the conditions that were imposed by BHP Billiton for this deal to come to go forth, other than the issue of price negotiation, because obviously the initial price would have not been the final price by which they would have bought Anglo American and the underlying assets. The issue was that BHP Billiton was not happy with the level of exposure that Anglo American had to the South African market. This was a huge sticking point, which obviously does not necessarily speak to the strength and the future viability and the lucrativeness of these underlying assets which are based in the South African market, but it speaks directly to the confidence that global investors have towards the South African market. And so because they couldn't agree on the terms at the time, and it would have been very difficult for Anglo American to divest their South African or majority of their South African interests quick enough for them to complete this transaction of a merger with BHP Billiton, that the transaction had to be suspended. And the Anglo American board, as it turns out, that in the past 12 months, as it is June now, has been engaging on a methodical process of divesting and demergering from Anglo Platinum, which I must say that they've really done a good job in keeping this under wraps, because the media was not reporting on this. They only started reporting on this a month ago, when this process was actually towards its end. And I suppose these things have to be kept under wraps because of the possibility of ability to move markets when this sort of news might be leaked. And then they were able to keep it under wraps. And it's very concerning for me, because this company, this global behemoth, Anglo American, has been systemically divesting its interest from overly exposed assets that are overly exposed to South African markets. In 2021, they successfully divested and demerged and sold their controlling interest of a subsidiary which was known at the time as Anglo Coal, which has subsequently have become what is now known as Thungela Resources, which is actually quite a large and fantastic company. And a lot of my former colleagues who I worked with at Anglo American when I was working for Anglo Platinum at the time are actually working for Thungela. And my former boss at the time when I was at Anglo Platinum, who was the executive head of process, Mr. July Ndlovu, is now the CEO of Thungela Resources. But also remember that July Ndlovu had been transferred from Anglo Platinum in the years prior to that, and had been transferred to Anglo Coal to be a joint CEO of Anglo Coal with another white executive, I forgot his name now. And so he had been actually leading that side of the Anglo American business right up until the time when Anglo Coal was successfully sold, and it became a standalone company now called Thungela, known as Thungela Resources. And now they have actually successfully sold their interest in Anglo American Platinum, which is the largest platinum producer in the world. 38% of all platinum in the world is produced by Anglo Platinum. And it can't possibly be because of the viability of this business. This is a very, very good business and a well-run business. To be like, I have a lot of friends who are working for Anglo Platinum, former colleagues, because I worked there as well at some point in the smelting operations in Rustenburg and in Limpopo in the northern. So it's also being reported right now that Anglo American, which is a majority shareholder of De Beers, the biggest diamond producer in the world, they are in the process of selling their majority stake in De Beers, which also has a lot of exposure to the South African market and to the Botswana market and Namibia to a certain extent. This is speaking to the confidence that investors have towards the South African market. Obviously, they are giving these BS reasons in terms of why they are selling these businesses, like focusing on core assets. But I mean, come on. What do you mean core assets? You mean the platinum is not your core asset, which has been a business that you've been a leader in for the past like close to 100 years, and you telling us that platinum is not your core business? And also, are you telling us that diamonds are not your core business, which has been a business that Anglo American and the Oppenheimer family have been in, like, heavily involved in for the past 150 years to 200 years? It can't possibly be the reasons that they are giving that no, they are moving towards their core interests of whatever copper, steel, and fertilizer and all this other stuff that they're talking about. That's not true. And obviously they can't come out and issue a statement that is disparaging towards South Africa, because it's going to affect the market severely. It's going to affect share prices. It's also going to affect the price of Anglo American Platinum, which is now trading as Valterra Platinum. Valterra Platinum, which is also has a secondary listing at the London Stock Exchange. It must also be noted that Anglo American still has some interest in South Africa, because they are still the majority shareholder in Kumba Iron Ore Resources. And I'm interested in knowing, in terms of what are they planning to do with those assets. But it must be noted that by divesting from Anglo Platinum, they have substantially reduced their exposure to the South African market. Like, they wouldn't have reduced their exposure as much by selling Kumba Iron Ore as much as they have reduced it by selling Anglo Platinum, the largest platinum producer in the world. Also, it would not have been as easy to sell Kumba Iron Ore Resources as it is to sell their platinum. In terms of, when I say easy, talking about them actually being able to get value for the money, or value for the shares that they are holding in a particular company. Because the platinum assets are the assets that would have been the easiest to sell without losing much of the value that they hold in it as possible. So it is very interesting, because I also discovered that this has been sold by pure accident, because a friend of mine, I've got quite a few friends who are now high up in senior management of platinum processing operations in Anglo Platinum. And so I just discovered from one of them that this is what is happening, that they are no longer working for Anglo American Platinum, but they are now working for Valterra Platinum, which is basically the same thing as what happened with the people who were working for Anglo American, in terms of Anglo Coal, and then that company was sold and became a separate standalone company, no longer a subsidiary of Anglo American, and it became Thungela Resources, which happened in 2021. And it also turns out that at the time, I actually discovered after the fact that Anglo Coal has been sold, because I was consulting for a company in Mpumalanga who had Thungela as one of its clients, and I didn't know that actually this Thungela is actually Anglo Coal until I realized, July Ndlovu, what? And then I went to check. I was like, oh wow, snap! This is what has happened. Yeah, so yeah, folks, a lot is happening. Just check it out. Let me know what your thoughts are. But investors are not happy with South Africa. And some of the things that make them incredibly unhappy with the South African market is the issue of incredibly high and increasing energy costs, and energy instability, unreliability of energy supply and tenure from ESCOM, labor unrest, which at any given time there can be a strike, there could be mass like labor situations happening, policy uncertainty, with persistent policy uncertainty, which makes it very difficult for companies to have long-term planning. So it has made it very difficult and sluggish growth, which makes it very difficult for companies to be able to make money in an economy that is not growing. And this has been happening now for at least 10 years, where the South African economy is not growing at all. The economic growth of in South Africa last year was around 0.3, 0.5%. Yes, 0.5%. That is pathetic. That is absolutely woeful. Yeah, so it's bad, folks. It's bad. It's very bad. Let me know. Let me know what you think.